Hello guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome to the Popcorn Podcast. This is episode number 67. The last time we shot one of these monthly wrap-ups, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was episode 60. I think, which is
a lot in a month.
Is kind of weird that we've shot between 5-6 episodes now in
It's less than a month.
the month of April.
Yeah.
It's about a month.
That's crazy.
I might be getting this completely wrong. Anyways, today we are going to be talking about, of course, Clara's back. We're going to be talking about everything that we watched in the month of April. Currently, we're not in May. So we're at the very end of April. So we've got a couple days left of April as when we're shooting this video. So some of those watches will be transitioned into the next month of May. April was a really, really good month in terms of films. Maybe not so much in terms of frequency of films, but the quality of films, I would say, this is potentially our strongest month yet.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like we watched more films than we did last month.
Did we? I mean, it's still not a lot.
It's still not loads, but...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's probably...
6? No way.
Yeah,
We're not doing well.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking...
I don't know, I felt like maybe it's the quality of the films is so good.
It's because we've been watching so much Daredevil and Defenders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yeah, gosh, this has been a shaky start. What an intro, I would say. Welcome back to, obviously, this monthly episode where me and Clara chat about everything that we watched in the previous month, so we get to look back on some films that we haven't seen before and give our thoughts. Obviously, some new releases that wouldn't get their full episode, so if you are new... We are doing one of these every single month, so please do hop along for the journey. But of course, without further ado, let's just hop into April. I'll stop waffling now. Let's hop into April. So at the very end of last month, we shot that episode a little earlier as well. Mm-hmm. But there was one film that I did watch at the very end of March that I haven't spoken about in the previous episode, and that is A24's Death of a Unicorn. So I went to see this at the Cineworld Unlimited screening. So it was a couple of days earlier ahead of the release. You still haven't seen this film yet, correct?
Yes, and after your review, I didn't feel the need to go and see it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've heard quite mixed things about Death of a Unicorn just in general. Some people seem to have actually really admired the... I think somewhat originality of it, or the fresh take it brings to the kind of eat the rich genre. Mm-hmm. It has, of course, got this almost fantastical edge to it, involving unicorns and using unicorns as almost a commodity to increase your wealth and life, essentially value of life. Mm-hmm. So this is an A24 produced kind of like I said, eat the rich comedy, black comedy sort of fantasy, I would say, and it stars Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, Richard E. Grant, T. Leone, Will Poulter. Will Poulter, I would say, just to kick this off, he's probably the funniest character in this entire...
He's great. He
is really... this is not the last Will Poulter film we're going to be talking about this month, but he seems to be really someone who is quite frequent now. We're seeing him, and that's not a complaint. I do really love Will Poulter. I think he's fantastic, and I think if you are going to see Death of a Unicorn, one of the main reasons to see the film would be Will Poulter. He's just hysterical, and his character is this complete, just sort of oddball, weird. He's got this whole thing that he's doing, and a lot of it doesn't work, but a lot of it does work, and it had a lot of the time the audience laughing at when I went to see the film. Mm-hmm. Overall, I would say, I just don't think the ideas really come together, and the film is kind of muddled with basically sort of all the kind of genres it's sort of trying to put together, and it doesn't quite come together for me.
So is it a comedy?
It is technically like a satire comedy.
Okay.
But it has this, but it's obviously A24, so they got to do some sort of spin on it. They got to put some sort of spin on it. To be honest, there's one thing, my favorite film of, obviously, I'll say this in every episode, is of course Jurassic Park, and this film is so evidently, so clearly, paying homage to, and even in some cases ripping off Jurassic Park, just substituting unicorns for velociraptors in this case, which did make me smile just as a big fan of Jurassic Park. But yeah, like I said, overall, it doesn't really... I don't think it's a good film. I don't think it's... it just doesn't quite come together. I can admire it for what it is, but on a whole, yeah, it doesn't really do it for me.
Is it at all like a Saturday night date? Kind of like, oh, this is a piece of fun, could chill out, or not even quite.
It's almost that. It's almost that. But
okay.
It is like me and Isaac came out of this and we were like, it was pretty bad.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's got some cool, interesting ideas. It also, it's. I never thought I'd be saying this, but I like Paul Rudd in basically everything that he's done, and somehow this film managed to make him unlikable as a character. Like, his character just did not work. They have this whole father-daughter kind of thing going on, and it just does not work. Like I said, that was kind of my reference to the kind of mismatch of ideas. But so that was Death of a Unicorn. If you enjoyed, I've seen some people quite. I think Alex enjoyed it quite a bit. I think Amy might have enjoyed it. Ben from Ben's Box Office quite enjoyed it a bit. So there are definitely some people who have.
People think it's like a bit of
fun.
a breath of fresh air.
Definitely
kind of
breath of fresh air. That's what I would say. But moving on, the first thing that we officially watched in the month of April was, of course, War Dogs.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
One of my favorites. To those of you who haven't seen War Dogs, I didn't just have a malfunction and make some weird noise. That is the reference to, of course, Jonah Hill's character, his iconic laugh in the film that he does. And I have, friends, who have so many inside jokes referencing this film, specifically the Lola, of course. But this was your first time watching it after hearing so much buzz from me and Lola and etc. What did you think of War Dogs?
I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. For one thing, I didn't actually know what the film was about going in. Like, I knew it was a comedy thriller-esque thing.
Yeah,
but that was it. So I didn't quite realise exactly what it was about. And I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was done very well. I thought the acting was really good. The timing of everything. Jonah Hill is obviously hilarious. I don't really have any complaints from that film. It was like, what I quite liked about it is I feel like tonally there's a lot of films around like this or try to do this. And so few of them do it successfully. Yeah. And I feel like partly because of, poor dialogue or bad acting or whatever, but also partly because they don't have quite such a unique idea, if that makes sense. Like, there's something quite special, I think, about
War Dogs.
Yeah, just about like, I just think it's, we've seen the film of, young lads trying to get money and grow up and being a bit silly and all of that kind of stuff. But like doing it in this way, I haven't feel like I've seen before, and it's a cool idea. And I think they pulled it off really well. Like, they didn't overstretch themselves, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just thought it was quite like, as much as it was once again a sort of, young lads trying to get money and sort of, being naive and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. It still managed to be fresh.
Yes.
That's sort of what I'm going for there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think what I would say to that is because I feel like because it's directed by Todd Phillips, he did the Hangover trilogy. I'm specifically referring to the first one, or the style and tone of that film is very much present also here in War Dogs. So I feel like he's almost taken the Hangover formula and applied it to arms dealers and the world of arms dealers.
Exactly. Because I feel like I've seen, obviously the Hangover's the Hangover and it's great, but there's a lot of films and the female version of those films like Bridesmaids or whatever that like there's always that like we've seen a lot of versions of that film that aren't quite as good as The Hangover. Do you know what I mean? We've seen a lot of versions of that, but he took that and applied it to something very different and created its own little world and its thing that was great. I wasn't watching it like, oh, this is The Hangover but not as good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I still, like, as much as I love War Dogs, I still would put it in the kind of same category as like 2010s era that are sort of these comedies with these kind of like really rich saturated color palettes that move at a breakneck pace, that are edited really sharply, that are a bunch of really dumb idiots about a sort of serious thing as well. So like the mesh of comedy. The other film I can think about is Pain and Gain, directed by Michael Bay.
Yeah, maybe I just haven't seen enough of these films.
Yeah, which is basically a similar kind of premise of like these guys get like, instead of arms dealing, it's bodybuilding in this case. So it's like they apply that kind of these guys trying to get rich and then falling into sort of ending badly kind of thing. It does kind of still fall into that category for me, but fair. It is so.
Maybe I just haven't seen enough of these films.
It is. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's crazy to think that was the last film Todd Phillips did before he went to do the Joker. To do Joker.
That is kind of
that was War Dogs. One more for you guys. Up next, okay, we have Crazy Stupid Love. So lovely George from the Pulp Kitchen podcast, who we love, recently made a video on why Crazy Stupid Love isn't actually that great. You know, it's outdated. There's so many things in the film that just don't work anymore, or haven't worked, or, you know, just in general, it's not as good as people hold it up to be. It is not one of the best rom-coms to come out recently. So we sat down with your younger brother who hadn't seen the film, watched it, rewatched it for us, he watched it for the first time. This is one of my, you know, all-time kind of, I don't want to say, I'm hesitant to say all-time favorites, but I mean, just because how much that film I keep going back to with like friends, and like the amount of people I've shown this film to, or I had shown this film to, and of course, you know, Ryan Gosling is madly iconic in that film, and Steve Carell. It's got such a great cast, and it's just that kind of film that I could go to just have an amazing time with, and of course, spoilers, but like the twist in it is this crazy, almost Shakespearean like twist in the middle of a sort of raunchy rom-com. If you haven't seen Crazy Stupid Love, that's kind of what it's about. But I assume if you're still listening, you have. George from Pulp Culture Podcast basically made a video saying how it's, you know, it's kind of outdated essentially. So we rewatched it, and what do you think? What do you think about the film? I haven't watched it on the second watch.
Firstly, it's hilarious. I'm a big Steve Carell fan, and I think he's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the film is funny. Like you said, all the sort of little storylines come together so well in such a Shakespearean and fun way.
Yeah.
And I'm a big sitcom fan, so I love watching all the like little storylines do their thing, and everyone's, you know, sleeping with everyone, and it all comes together.
It does have a kind of sitcom-y
Yeah, exactly.
structure.
And so I'm a big fan of stuff like that. So I really enjoyed it, found it really funny. But I also think, and not to go too political and serious about what's clearly a hilarious and funny raunchy rom-com, but I think it isn't that outdated, and I actually think it's quite interesting for the times we live in.
Okay, go on.
Because basically it's a film about masculinity and what it means to be a man, in my opinion.
Yes.
In lots of ways.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, he loses his wife.
Yeah.
She cheats on him. And why is that? And it's throughout the film, he's questioning basically his manhood. And he starts by looking to Ryan Gosling, the, you know, Andrew Tate-esque, obviously a lovely version, type.
Is he lovely? Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all he's doing is
he's
around.
funny.
He's a little bit slutty, but he's, you know, not evil. And to sort of, you know, buy him the suits and pick up women and
be better than the Gap.
Be better than the Gap, exactly. And obviously, it's all done hilariously. You're constantly laughing. Their friendship is sweet. Like, it's all done with such a gentle and lovely touch. But basically, it's, you know, do I become that kind of man, or actually is what I need to do be honest about my feelings and who I love, and go after that and take care of the people around me. And that's what the film's about, that question between, you know, what makes me a man and what makes me love and things like that. And I think really it's a very sweet film that sort of is very honest about those things.
Interesting.
Do you not think that at all?
No, I mean, no, I do think the film, for the most part, still holds up. I think you can still have such a good time with it.
Yeah.
I can understand. Listening to George, I can understand why some elements.
Oh, the little.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I can understand why some elements don't quite work, especially for the current times. But for me, let's take, for example, the whole Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling kind of, for lack of a better phrase, toxic male sort of trajectory that the film kind of goes in, and sort of doesn't advertise, but like it glorifies it to a certain extent.
But it does it in a way that's like, you could see it's not patronizing. It's not like this is evil. It's like, this is so much fun and this is hilarious, and they have found this friendship, and then it's quite honest about what that doesn't bring you. It's not like, ooh, this is what you shouldn't do. Like,
but the reason I don't look at that and take it like seriously is because a lot of it is to do with Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling's dynamic in it, and how it's played for laugh. And it's such a, they're almost like, Ryan Gosling is almost this caricature. Like, you know, he does some ridiculous things like throw Steve Carell's shoes off the balcony of the mall. Gosh. And like, it's so over the top.
When he's eating pizza.
Yeah.
Just like, that's it. That is just
and they're playing like almost like gladiator, like Arabian music.
Good.
Like, it's so fun and bizarre and it's hilarious. Like,
exactly, that's what I mean. I'm not, it's not a critique on society. I'm just saying, if you're going for that film's like not appropriate or that film is outdated, I actually don't believe that because of its underlying message.
Yes.
That like, and I like, also why, like, the film isn't preachy, the film is fun, the film is a raunchy rom-com. Like, you want to have that shot underneath of him eating pizza with the Gladiator music and to slap Steve Carell because it's funny, like, and it works. And I don't know.
But it's almost even funnier now because of how we perceive that kind of lifestyle and see how ridiculous it is. You can look at it and be like, oh my God, this is actually hilarious. And also, like you said, like the actual film itself, what Steve Carell's character like the journey he kind of goes on, this journey of manhood. He gets to a point where his wife's cheating on him, Julianne Moore's cheated on him, and he meets Ryan Gosling, this guy who basically objectifies women, sleeps with women, and Steve Carell begins to do that. He begins to objectify women. He begins to go on this rampage. There's this bar. He basically has sex with nine women, and
not all at once.
And what happens? The film shows you that he doesn't find happiness in that. He doesn't find fulfillment in that. The answers he's looking for don't lie in that kind of lifestyle. So the moral of the film is exactly that. It isn't. If someone looks at the film and thinks that the film is basically saying that, you need to be like this Ryan Gosling character, then, I mean...
And even Ryan Gosling, like, when he's...
By the way, George, I'm not saying that you think that, but...
Yeah. But when he ends up in bed with...
Emma Stone.
And they don't sleep together, spoiler alert, but they're talking... And he finally finds a real connection with someone.
Exactly.
And he opens up and you realise how sad he is and how lonely he is and how much the money and all of that brings him nothing, how much the women bring him nothing. And he starts to have a human connection and becomes so much happier and all of this kind of stuff. It's not you said, it's not an advertisement for the toxic lifestyle. It's definitely a very heartwarming, heartfelt film about love. Love, how to love.
Well, no,
well,
that's exactly the point. And we'll get onto the second sort of bit that we want to talk about. But yes, I think both Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell more so, but they both go on a change of sorts. Their characters do develop through the course of the runtime. Ryan Gosling meets Emma Stone, and she's a girl that isn't like the I don't want to say hundreds of girls that he slept with before. She gives him something different. Like she this is actually someone he can, he's feeling love for, and maybe for the first time. And I think it still works. It still holds up for the most part. Now the stuff that perhaps doesn't hold up so much is quite, for lack of a better word, illegal. But
I will actually, and you're going to be surprised at the stance I take on
Oh
this.
my gosh.
But
are you about to justify this?
Okay, other than the last scene,
I
actually don't think any of it's that bad. Can't lie, I'm sure in your school loads of the boys had crushes on teachers or parents. Loads
of boys, me as well, man. No,
okay.
I'm just kidding.
And in my school, obviously, loads of the girls had crushes on male teachers and male parents. I think part of being an adolescent is partly, fancying people that aren't appropriate for you. Obviously, there's an issue if they are then yes, because
it's illegal
and wrong. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the fact that the little boy fancies his childminder, because that obviously that happens. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the babysitter fancying the dad, because 100% that happens. And I think it's quite funny in the film, and it's something, there is a time in people's lives where they are figuring things out and fancying the wrong people and all of this kind of stuff.
It's almost like for what's her name, Jessica. This, I'm sure this is more common with girls, but girls have the weird crush. They fancy someone who isn't typical, the first, but you wouldn't look at them and be like, oh my god, they're this super attractive, but there's just something about them. Whereas guys definitely look at girls and fancy them definitely more based on look.
100%. There were definitely girls in my school that fancied the really bad looking teachers, and everyone was like, what the fuck is that?
Right. There's something weird. So, and I do feel like it does fit into the the whole crazy stupid love idea of very on the nose, but there you go. That whole kind of love triangle thing is so, you use the word funny. It is funny, but it is also weird, and that's why it kind of works is because you question like whether or not you're supposed to be laughing at this
but
or
also,
not.
yeah, it gives you that like moment of like, oh my god, what's
Yes,
happening?
like,
What's
ugh,
happening? Oh, like,
yeah.
and that's kind of the point. And I don't have an issue with that. I think everyone sort of, you know, I think that if there was one issue I would have with the whole like,
Yeah.
what the message is of this film, is it appropriate, whatever, would be the like, the young boy pursuing the babysitter, that like, everyone's like the right thing to do is just keep pursuing her. I feel a bit like,
Yeah.
bro, like either way, like there's nothing wrong with having a crush on someone at all. But obviously, like if someone going, you're weird, you're making me feel uncomfortable, please stop. Like,
yeah,
he's young, I don't blame him. But like everyone around him should have been like, yeah, mate, like chill. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. But also they are like very much like, oh, he's just a dumb kid. Like,
yeah, no. It's not that deep.
Yeah.
Like I'm not against it. But like I feel like in that whole storyline, that is, if I was to take issue with anything. But again, I don't really like, I don't know, I think it's funny and I think it's sweet, and love is stupid and crazy and all over the place. I
mean, like you said, it is funny and it is sweet until the very last moment of the film.
Okay,
where Jessica
justify this.
This George, you got us now. This we can't really justify because basically at the end of the film, of course, Jessica gives Robbie the nudes that she took and were meant for Steve Carell, his dad. And obviously he's a minor. So obviously, firstly, that's just illegal. Secondly,
that's illegal.
Yeah, it does give you, and again, for me, it doesn't debunk the whole film, but it does leave you with a kind of like nervous laugh kind of sort of a moment as you hit the end credits. Like it's
that is very outdated. Like that's very illegal.
No, of course, I don't do that. But like,
other than that, I don't know. I don't think it's creepy. I think it's aged fine. I actually think it's aged quite well.
Yeah. But the thing is, it was illegal back when it came out as well. So what do you think is
I think it's the growth of social media and onlineness, that nudes used to be a thing. And then they became like the thing, especially for young people, and that like,
start taking that thing a lot more seriously, as we should, But no, all in all, though, I think this is it still hits, right? It's
still fun.
But fair enough. If you think Crazy Stupid Love is outdated, if you think it doesn't hit the same as it used to do, or you're of that similar kind of thought. Do let us know, and similarly, if you do still enjoy the film, if you still think the film holds up, do let us know as well. I would love to get your take on the film in today's current age. So moving on from Crazy Stupid Love, in a similar vein, we've got Possession.
Lol.
It's another film about love, you could say. 1981's Possession, which is a film that had been on my radar for quite some time now. I was a big fan of horror. This is somewhat one of the classics, but in a very different light, in the sense it is much more artsy. It's crazy. It's insane. This film is insane.
It's mad.
What did you think of Possession?
I'm not really sure what I thought of Possession, to be completely honest. I was impressed by a lot of it, and I was also a bit taken out of a lot of it.
Okay.
I feel like.
Go on.
So I think the sort of lack of place and time that the film has, it's very the sets, the way they move through the sets and the rooms and the doors constantly, you're jumping time all the time. You really feel lost in this marriage and watching it breaking down and all the sort of crazy and supernatural things that are going on. Yeah. And I thought that was very impressive.
Just to pause you there really quickly, for those of you who don't know what Possession is about, it is essentially about a couple who are getting divorced, and the husband is trying to find out sort of what has led to this divorce, I would say. Is his wife sleeping with another person, or is there something more sinister at play here? So the film is this almost horror, psychological horror drama, and it's incredibly intense. And please do continue. Sorry, just to put that.
So I was just going to say, like, that I was very impressed by. I thought that was really good. I thought, all the sort of like allegories for different things in a marriage, the interfering sort of friend auntie type, the like, you know, her lover, crazy sort of hypersexual guy, like all these different things sort of happening around in a very heightened way were kind of interesting, kind of a little bit on the nose, but done quite well. And the supernatural thing was really cool, and like the sort of beast that she was sort of giving life to that then sort of becomes a better version of him, like all of that, you know, interesting, all of that kind of stuff. But I did feel like something about the performances or something about, I don't know, it didn't pull me in maybe enough. I often felt quite like,
did you feel like it was quite gimmicky?
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe that's what I mean,
like a bit stagey.
Yeah, like it definitely, like at the beginning the acting felt a bit off. I got used to it and the like tone of it, but even some sequences where she's like sort of like almost being possessed, I guess, by the thing, I just felt a bit like, this feels like, you know, GCSE drama. Like this doesn't feel like,
really,
like I didn't feel like I felt like Lily Rose Depp when I watched her be sort of possessed by Nosferatu. Like it didn't feel as, it felt a bit like, I don't know, like it didn't, I don't know, and I just didn't like pull me in, I think, enough. I think some things did, like I said, the sense of like loss of place and time and all of these things. But
no, that's fair enough. I think I really enjoyed the film. I think the film is really, really good. It is not a film that you can watch for the first time and just sort of grasp everything.
Yeah, I think so.
It is very artsy. It's kind of in this, if you've seen Beau is Afraid, it's a bit like, you know, there's all these weird things happening and you're like, what do these things mean? And like I said, it's kind of like a lot of the time is a kind of question of whether or not this marriage, you know, the reason for the sort of breaking of this marriage is something real, or if it's something kind of sinister going on. And to go to your point about the performances, I agree at the start, like something about the performances were kind of off. And I, like, for example, Sam Neill stars in the film. I love Sam Neill. And I didn't think he was particularly good at the start. And I was kind of like, I don't know if he's bad or if they're just doing a thing and it's gonna, you know, it's for the film and it's specific to this. And I do think it was specific to this. I do think there is everything about the filmmaking, the characters, the trajectory it goes, is there is something just slightly off. You can't quite make sense of kind of anything that's happening. There's all this surrealistic, surreal imagery regarding kind of like flesh and meat. There's this whole sort of meat grinder thing, and the way it uses blood and violence and how it depicts that, I thought was really kind of nasty and gnarly and really kind of got under my skin. It feels disgusting as it feels like the film has a real kind of physicality to it, and you don't want to kind of go anywhere. It's like seeing a dead body almost. I've never seen a dead body, but like it's almost like you kind of just want to sort of stay back. That's kind of what the film feels like to me. It does have a real texture to it, and of course it is a huge allegory for kind of the destructive and toxic, you know, state that a lot of marriages find themselves in, and how partners can become so disenfranchised with each other. And it is very artsy, and it's kind of, for me, it was kind of like the beginning made a lot of sense, and the kind of ending, how it concludes, also kind of makes a lot of sense. The middle portion for me,
oh my god, the gay like detectives, that was so rogue.
The middle portion for me, with all the surreal imagery, etc., it's kind of like how I feel about, like, you know, the kind of ongoing joke about like an artist or a painter. They have like a blank canvas and they just chuck like 5 seconds, they like chuck a bunch of paints on and like sprinkle some shit here and there, and they're like, art. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel a bit about this film, a little bit. But it, like I said, it's not a film you can watch and kind of get everything on the first watch.
I was just gonna say, I feel like there is some films, and not horror films, but more sort of French, more sort of like some of the French films that I've seen about marriage, like a lot of Godard's stuff. I feel like, or not marriage, but relationships. The way their relationships are kind of done in this sort of long conversation, timeless kind of way, which is a lot of sort of fights and strange characters and a little bit, and it's not surreal as in like, oh, there's a monster, but like almost a little bit surreal as in like dreamlike. Yes, in a way. Yeah, I think really tonally was similar to this film, and I think maybe it was partly that like almost without all the supernatural stuff, I almost felt like you can get something a little bit more raw. Yeah, 100%. Do you know what I'm saying? No, and I know that wasn't the point of this film. I just think that, like,
I do think it's the point. I absolutely do think it's the point.
No. I mean, like, the point of this film was to do the supernatural stuff.
Well, but this is the thing. So when you were talking about the performances, for me, and you felt like some of the stuff is a bit stagey. For me, when I was watching that, I was like, these performances are a bit weird. But I was genuinely looking at like Anna, so the main character, Isabella Adjani, and her screaming in a tunnel for like 10 minutes straight.
Yeah, that was the one I was saying.
I was watching that, and I was just like, I was genuine. It is the kind of screams and the kind of performance that you could look at and genuinely ask yourself, is this some sort of possession happening, or is this just a person going mental and insane?
Yeah.
Like that is, so for me, that kind of staginess sort of worked for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So like,
I'm not
that's
saying,
what I would say.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. But yeah, I do agree with what kind of what you're sort of.
Yeah, I maybe just wasn't super, like, maybe I shouldn't get it enough or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I did enjoy it and I thought it was interesting. Like, I'm not against the film. I just didn't like love it.
Fair enough. But moving on, we saw another classic. I rewatched this for the first time in years. You saw it for the first time. We went to the Prince Charles and we watched Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. Again, a film that you had not seen. Do you want to sort of tell the folks how you felt about Seven Samurai?
So I sort of booked these tickets because I'd never seen Seven Samurai, and it's been sort of around and on my watch list and sort of like a gap, I felt like, for a long time. But that being said, I didn't really know what it was about. Like, I knew it was about Seven Samurai, but other than that, I didn't really have that much of an idea. So I thought it was going to be something very, like, serious and very, you know, deep and artful and all of this kind of stuff. And I was quite surprised by just how much of a, like, adventure kind of, you know, friendship-led camaraderie kind of a film it was. How much I laughed. And then, of course, it ends in a very sort of tragic way. But yeah, I just sort of you called it a Western almost.
Yeah, it's basically a Western. It is the blueprint for the Magnificent Seven, of course.
Yeah, which I have seen, so I should have guessed what the film's about. But yeah, I don't know. I was so kind of, I was blown away by its beauty. The way it's shot is amazing, and just so captivated by the characters and the story and everything. And I really enjoyed the sort of mixture of humor and seriousness and I really liked it.
No, I mean,
obviously, it's brilliant, but
no, it is a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece for a reason. I think, you know, people who haven't seen the film, if you hear the title of a film, a Seven Samurai, one would probably assume that it's some sort of action film. It is not an action film. This film is about, like you said, friendship and camaraderie and culture and a way of life that is now more or less extinct. You compare it to something like the Last Samurai, which I also love, but that is so westernized.
No, exactly. This is it. In my mind, samurai is like honor and seriousness.
Exactly.
The legacy and all of this kind of stuff. So I was waiting for all of that, and it was just like.
But if anything, this film actually critiques the way of the samurai. How the samurai are. You know, they want money.
They're swords for hire.
They want rice. They want they're swords for hire. And how the lowly person kind of just reveres them. But when you get down and sort of to the crux of these people, they're not these huge esteemed sort of figures that pop culture has made them out to be. It's kind of this pastiche of that way of life. That's how I kind of look at that film. And you know, it's a 3.5 hour epic, and it's one of the greats for a reason. And I mean, I could go on, but
and I've spoken about its humor, but it's also kind of heart-wrenching and shot in a heart-wrenching way in so many cases. Like, I feel like I can still visualize, you know, when that girl's sort of dragged out and is in the snow and stuff like that, and her father's face in the foreground, and she's like, just these images right up till the last shot, and I probably won't ruin it, but you know, and it's just, each of these have stuck in my brain from the film. It's so, but it's a masterpiece.
It's
that's
fantastic.
Just
Nothing more to
say.
Speaking of kind of westerns, on the 15th we went to an early screening of Sinners. I've already reviewed the film on the channel, so that's kind of, I would say my thoughts have developed since. I haven't yet seen it for a second time. I am going to see it again tomorrow, which I'm very looking forward to doing. But what are your thoughts on Sinners?
Really enjoyed Sinners, had such a good time with it. It was one of those films that I felt really just super lost in and enjoyed, very immersed in the world that they'd built. Well acted, beautifully shot. Shout out to the cinematographer, and I've forgotten her name. I really enjoyed it. The music was amazing. I know everyone's talking about that one like long shot with but it was phenomenal. I don't have something super new to bring to the conversation about Sinners, other than the fact that I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
really.
I think it is definitely the best film of the year so far, without a doubt. I think it's Ryan Coogler's best film. If I were to say, I've got so many things that I do want to talk about, but I think no,
go on, pop a couple of your new thoughts in there.
Well, I was really thinking about the film a lot this week, and a lot of people have really taken to it. Like, there's very, very few people who I've seen online in the comment sections, etc., who don't like this film. I think it is almost a guaranteed hit with anyone.
Yeah.
And I think that just is testament to just how well done the film is. Ryan Coogler, like his vision for the film. I think Ludwig Göransson, massive credit here, and just how he's able to drive a lot of the film purely through music. Miles Caton, who, this is his debut, and he is what a star already. The film is about a lot of things. Again, and I do have some drawbacks, which I kind of hinted on in my review of the film. But just, it's kind of, for me, I'm kind of still in a bit of awe about the film that it is this good. You know when you just get a film and it's just like, basically most of it, if not all of it, just works. And like, with most films you can critique this and you could critique that, and I could, if I really wanted to pick this film apart and critique things, but like, it is also a film that
comes together
so well. And
like what you just said, I was just thinking about it. I have a few friends that aren't necessarily big film buffs, and with very different taste in films, and I've recommended them both Sinners, just because it is that film for everyone in a way that you can be into this or you can be into that, or you can be just a sort of casual film watcher, and it is a film you'll go to the cinema and you'll just have a great time and you'll experience a great film. And it's
brilliant.
It's
it is absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Speaking of brilliant, though, on Easter Sunday we went to the BFI and we watched Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. Thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. We've watched so many good films.
There's not one film on this entire, so aside from Death of Unicorn, but that was in March. In April, there's not one film here that we've not enjoyed.
Yeah, no, 100%. Really enjoyed it. I kind of loved the direction it went in.
Yeah.
Sort of you go in thinking it's, classic detective story, whodunit kind of a thing. And you come out sort of realising that it wasn't about that. And it was so much about what this case meant to all these different people.
Yeah.
And how their lives keep going. And I thought it was, like I said to you as we left, really interesting as well on just what it means to torture someone. And the effects of torture, because I think quite often in film or in TV, it's just not really done very well. That it, the way it just sort of how people treat it, how it just purely just doesn't work, and all of these things, I again never really feel like I've seen done quite so well, and in a way where it's not like necessarily a really sort of fabulistic film about it, like how terrible. Let's not do this.
Yeah.
Or it's like, or I'll see it in a, like in Game of Thrones where it's just horrific.
Yeah.
Or you'll see it in something where, well, we really need this information, get it quickly, and let's pretend we didn't do this kind of a thing. Whereas this is the only film I've really seen that's a little bit more, I feel, honest about how it works.
Well, the thing is, you use the word torture. So I think a lot of people, when you think torture, you think of these like gruesome images of people's nails getting pulled out, or like them in the electric chair, or whatever it might be, in the kind of pursuit of information, right? That's kind of usually what torture is. This film is, of course, in the pursuit of information a lot of the time, and you have these cops who are in way over their heads. Firstly, a lot of them are just bumbling idiots, and their frustration with being unable to catch this killer, this serial killer, means that unfortunately for a lot of the suspects, they end up mistreating. So,
but I think again that definition of, because again we've Hollywoodified.
Well, exactly. This is what I'm saying. What it is torture. It is torture.
It 100% is. And like, this guy digs his own grave at the beginning. Like, it's torture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's Yeah, but it's also like watching this. It's interesting to see how that idea of whatever you want to call it, mistreatment or torture or abuse or whatever it is, because of how the characters are written and because of how invested you are in these stories, in these character journeys, even though they're not fantastic human beings, you get so wrapped up in the mystery and their pursuit of this killer that when they do go to torture or mistreat these people, you don't look at that and switch off immediately.
Oh no, 100%. Yeah, that's partly why I think it's so good.
Yes,
but also how useless it is to do that, because they end up getting They end up getting exactly what they want to hear, but none of the truth.
Yeah.
So like, and it's 100% how torture works. That you get so much lies when you torture someone because they don't tell you the truth. They tell you whatever they think will make you stop torturing.
Oh yeah.
So like it's. And again, like it's such a thing and such a stupid thing that often in films when it's used, you know, you get the truth out of someone, which is just bollocks. Like it's just bollocks because that's not how it works. And so I think this film was really interesting about it, firstly, because at times you're like, he's the killer, get him kind of a thing. And so you're almost on the side of the people doing these horrible things. But yeah, also it's useless and it doesn't work. And I don't know, I just thought it was that. It's not the whole film. It's not.
I feel like we've gone on this one really torture
deep.
Point and then almost like
this
extrapolated
is like the tiniest part. Not tiniest.
It's like one thing in the film.
It's like tiny, yeah.
Some people probably watch this. But are they actually talking about Memories of Murder?
Yeah, exactly. But I just thought that was really interesting. But aside from that, like again, the sort of merger of comedy and seriousness in this film is very interesting. Gorgeously shot as well. That sort of
it's brilliantly shot.
Yeah. Really amazing, and just certain like sequences and moments that, you know, you can go from sort of laughing at something's just happened and then be following that woman down a rainy path at night. And I jumped in the cinema.
Yeah,
I was like, so the sort of amazing talent you must have to make a film where you can switch someone up from going, oh my god, that's hilarious, to being like,
yeah,
it's just.
Yeah. I mean,
insane.
Exactly. Like it's just like Bong Joon-ho's taken this incredibly serious, quite nasty subject, and you know is still able to put moments of levity in there as well, but levity in the sense of like not a kind of haha look I made a joke kind of thing, but almost the ridiculousness of these characters at some points.
No, again, and it's not the classic like, oh, let's say this one liner and get a laugh out of your audience that you know you're being prodded to. No, not at all. Not. It's like the situation and how the characters are acting very naturally. Just has humor. Innately, and it's I think it's great.
And the performances are fantastic. They're very kind of physical performances as well. Like 1 minute you're watching someone observe in a bush, and the next minute they're sprinting through the town. Like, it's truly, this film I think is a masterpiece. I genuinely walked out of the cinema on this is my second time watching the film, genuinely questioning whether or not this is actually Bong Joon-ho's best film. I know know Parasite is a masterpiece, and it cemented itself as one of the greats. But Bong Joon-ho, like what he was able to, I just think it's a phenomenal film, and I think everybody should go check it out. If you like Zodiac, I think this is even better than Zodiac, and I think
and once again, like these things that are just cemented in my head, like that tunnel at the end.
That image is
just so
and it has one of the great endings of all time as well, with that one shot and look at the camera.
Yes, exactly.
Brilliant film. Last weekend, this is the final film that we watched up until when we shot this episode, was of course co-directed by Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza. That of course is Warfare. We have some thoughts on this film. But I want to ask you yours first up.
So I came out of the cinema of this film, and you asked me if I was okay like 4 times, because I was like left really shell-shocked by this film. I found it really got under my skin. I found it actually really upsetting. And I thought it was very brilliant because of that. For people who don't know what the film's about, it's basically do you want to describe what the film's about? Because you do better than me.
So the film follows a sort of battalion of Navy SEALs during the Iraq War, and they are essentially observing some suspects of sorts from a distance in this one house that they infiltrate and almost have as their kind of base of operations for a period of time. And there is danger and hostiles all around them, closing in. And what happens is they end up being trapped in this one location, and it turns into a dogfight, and people get hurt, people get injured, and it is essentially about them trying to get out of this situation that they find themselves, almost... They're trying to get out of this incredibly intense situation. They're fighting for their lives. They're trying to look after each other as well in the process of doing so. They're calling for backup. They're calling for airstrikes, and things just continuously keep escalating. And it's an incredibly, intense experience. That's the film. There is not really that much of a plot. It is literally a very situational and atmospheric kind of experience that you go on. It is basically almost kind of similar to Dunkirk, the final act of a film, but stretched over an hour and 30, I would say. Like the final, like what you would...
Yeah, you almost feel like it's one scene.
Yeah,
but
it's like
film.
one scene, but an entire, like an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's kind of the premise of it.
Yeah.
But please do continue.
No, I thought, some things I thought about it, which were really, really brilliant.
Yeah.
The first one was the way it was paced.
Yeah.
That you sort of start off with the just unbelievable boredom of war.
Yeah.
Of like they spend so long just sitting around doing their classic like checking things off, making lists, noting people. A lot of people just sitting around bored, surveying people. Do you know what I mean? Like very, very slow pace of things, moving gear, packing gear. Da, 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 da. If like ever spoken to people who've done things like this, it's like very much like, a lot of it is packing things in the right place and moving gear to the right position. Da, 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 da. So it's a lot of that. And then obviously when things go south and everything kicks off, unbelievably intense, unbelievably horrific, and the stress on everyone just insane. And the way the pacing goes from being so sort of quiet to being so sort of tense and fast, and you're always sort of like, you're almost like, you don't,
you're waiting
so
for the
serious,
like
but you're always like, get out, move in your head. You feel very
exposed. These characters feel exposed. Yeah,
exactly. So I think the pacing, the way they do that, is really impressive, and it almost feels a bit like you're with them. Like it almost, and it's not in real time, but it almost feels like it is in real time, just because you don't. It doesn't feel like film timing, if that makes sense. It feels like...
I think it is meant to emulate real time.
It does definitely emulate real time. You definitely feel like you're there. You're like... Yeah, anyway. So I thought that was really impressive. The other thing I think is really impressive is the performances.
Yeah.
Because we don't get a lot of backstory from the characters, but we don't need any backstory from the characters, because the way they react...
tells you everything you need to know about those characters for
exactly,
the film you're watching.
Yeah. And the way those... actors managed to pull off those performances was, in my opinion, incredible.
Yeah.
The way you saw each one of theirs breaking points or not breaking points, and how they responded to that stress, was incredible, and I thought completely flawless in every case. You knew everything you needed to know about Will Poulter's character. You knew everything you needed to know about, and I don't know their names, the other ones, but you knew everything you needed to know about them just from each second and how they reacted. I just thought that was all brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was blown away and really impressed, and I felt something very visceral and horrific about war from it. And yeah, I thought it was horrific.
Yeah, I mean, I think Warfare, first things first, it is not a conventional film. It doesn't follow a conventional narrative whatsoever, like we said. It's kind of just one scene, but that goes on for an hour and 30 minutes. Incredibly visceral, incredibly intense. It's a exercise. It's almost a technical exercise in pure atmospheric storytelling, I would say.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a plot. It doesn't really have a plot. The film starts with this one scene of all these guys, standing around a laptop watching the iconic "Call on Me" video, and then the main title hits, and then boom, you're dropped basically straight into this mission, and it's brutal. It is absolutely brutal, and like you said, just the way that Alex Garland, Ray Mendoza, these actors, how they hold the tension, like. Someone would have forgotten their bag in the other room, but they're wounded, so they can't go get it. So someone else has to go get it in the room. And the entire time you're on the edge of your seat, like, don't go in the room, don't go in the room, don't go. And a lot of the time, they're able to go in the room, get the thing. But like just the constant edge of your seat tension, you're waiting for that
and
bullet
horrific.
to come, the gunshot to come.
Exactly. How horrific it is, like these small things like grab a bag, how horrific it is if you get shot. Horrific it is when something goes wrong that you never really see in war film. I don't like just the level of
vulnerability
that it doesn't feel deep. Like, I'm just gonna go grab a bag. Like, I'll be able to get it.
Yeah.
But if things go wrong,
yeah,
that's the end, and that's everything ruined, and that's the most pain. The like.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just I can't.
Yeah. We were having a conversation about this in the car on the way here. We almost got into it, and I said, like, just save it for the pod.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I mean, you've started talking about it, but please.
Well, I just think
ahead.
Things that I've heard about this film sort of around is that Alex Garland has made yet another film that is apolitical, chooses not to be political about war. And I think definitely with this film is just a completely wrong take to have. Because firstly, this is a real war that happened. So you can't make something about the Iraq war and it not be political, just via the stories you choose to tell. If this was not from the perspective of Americans, if it was from the perspective of the family whose house they took, people would say this is a very political film. Just because you are telling the narrative you see most often doesn't mean it's not political. You've chosen as much as you want, you've chosen to tell something, you've chosen a political place.
Yeah.
If you'd chosen the opposite, people would call it out as being political. So that kind of annoys me, that kind of rhetoric around it. But that being said, I don't think it's not a preachy thing. It's not like...
Sorry, just to clarify, when you say films being... We did speak about this in the car. When you say the film is political, do you mean to say apolitical?
No, I mean it is political.
Yes, but it is political... That's just a thing. It is all kind of, modern kind of war films to a certain extent are political because they deal with conflict and war.
Yeah, no. It's just that's why I was annoyed when people start going, it's not political, it's an apolitical film. I'm like, no, it 100% is.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
No. Yeah. So people are basically telling you that the film is apolitical.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you're basically saying no, that's wrong.
It is.
It is
political.
It is political.
Yeah.
It does have a message, a political ideology behind it.
Yeah, even if, and I'm not saying Alex Garland is like, yes, go the U.S. Army in Iraq. Like, I'm not saying that he's doing that.
If anything, he's saying the opposite.
I'm not giving him a stance. I'm just saying that by choosing the stories you choose to tell, you are being political. You're telling a story about a political time. And I think it annoys me when people remove it from that.
Yeah.
Like, again, if this had been told from the point of view of that family or of the Iraqis, everyone would be like, this is such a political film. This is da-da-da-da-da. It's because we're seeing it through the lens of people we see it often through that we can say it's not. And that kind of annoys me. That's all I was going to say.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think when I look at a film like Warfare, firstly, I just want to say with regards to Alex Garland, I do really like Alex Garland as a filmmaker. I think Ex Machina is fantastic. And for me, this is the most genuine I have felt from him since Ex Machina. I feel like I like Annihilation a lot, and then there's Men, and then there was Civil War, which I didn't fully get on board, and I feel like obviously the conversation around Civil War was the fact that Civil War was meant to be apolitical, and this incredibly realistic and grounded take on a civil war and this kind of conflict, and it didn't really fully come together for me. And I think this film Warfare is such... It's like he finally hit the mark there.
Yeah,
I think everything in this film is so effective, and for me, I've seen a little bit of the conversation online. I've tried to kind of stay away from it, but a little bit of the conversation is supposedly the idea of when you watch this film, how you perceive it. Is the film actually celebrating the kind of acts of valor of these soldiers and almost like giving a reason for why there should be military and is it advocating for more
is it a film that sort of pro the fact that they're there, there are boys, there are heroes, or is it like these young men, they're being destroyed, this is horrific, this should stop?
Is it a film about basically being pro US Army, US military, good job guys, or is it a film that is like almost anti that? Like,
Yeah, no, I think, that I agree is an ambiguous message.
yes,
Yeah, 100%.
yes. The fact that you can watch this film and people are being split. I think majority of people who watch this film, I would like to think, and I think would look at this film and be like, oh my God, this is a horror film.
Yeah.
This definitely depicts the pointlessness of why, like,
but also what's firstly watchable about this film.
Yeah.
And I think almost, if you really want to make something about anti-war, like, okay, the fact that this film is watchable is partly because their army, that like this happens and did happen to civilians in Iraq. That kind of level of injury and that kind of level of brutality.
Yeah.
And that if you made a film about that, that would be fully unwatchable. That you, like, in just the horror and terribleness of that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, these poor boys deserved it, like that this was horrible. I'm just saying that the fact that they are there to be at war and this happens as part of the war is horrible and is a fact of war.
Yeah.
But it partly does also make it, you can watch something like that. And I think it's, again, we can only see it through those lens and through those eyes, partly because the real reality of war is so unwatchable. And the fact that they've chosen almost not to show that, I don't know.
What do you mean?
Like, it's not, I'm not saying that's what the film is about. I'm just saying that, like, I don't know how to put it.
I think what you're saying,
you can't, like, yeah, go on.
No, I think what you're basically saying is the way how people perceive war. When you think of war, do you first think of the soldiers, or do you think about the casualties? Mm-hmm. That's like, so like, it was like the Iraq War, the civilians, so much destruction and so much death and devastation. And to if you had a film about that, it would be almost unwatchable. Yeah, because there is no hope. That where does the film go? Aside from, there's only one way it ends. Whereas with this, there is exactly. Almost a mission and an objective, and that makes the film watchable, and you're able to follow these characters, despite the fact that the film is about the brutality and horrors of war.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, yeah, exactly.
Fine. But yeah, I think all in all, what a film. Like, I think it's brilliant. We were like completely numb after watching the film. Yeah. I think you can really tell the how having a co-director like Ray Mendoza, who is an Iraq War veteran, really enhances the effectiveness of basically about everything from just shooting the soldiers themselves, the filmmaking, to the combat scenes, watching how they communicate and interact, everything from basically how they interact with each other to showing like the conflict, the gun combat, etc. is on a different level. Yeah. Compared to for example, like Civil War, the final act of Civil War, the White House raid. God, yeah. There was almost like this sketch of sorts. That's how I look at that in comparison to a film as real and as authentic as this. Like, everything to a T is. I'm not a war veteran, but I fully am on board and believe basically for the most part everything
that happened. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think there's something, again, like I said, almost about the boredom but also the tactileness of everything that happened, like getting your pack, moving through here, the way they had to call people and the way the messaging worked, and the sort of levels of stages everyone had to go through, the protocol, all of this, and like the moment that breaks down, like all of those different things, so real, you really feel like you're there, which makes it all the more captivating and all the more horrific.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's Alex Garland's best film since Ex Machina.
I would agree with that.
I know he's co-directed it, but if you put it in his roster, 100% for me at least. Do let us know your thoughts on Warfare. That concludes this episode of the monthly catch-up. That is everything we more or less for now have watched in April. That was a good, solid list of films. We've been talking for like well over an hour, I want to say now. But there you go, guys. Do let us know your thoughts on any of those films that you have seen and any films you did manage to catch in the month of April. We'd love to know. But for now, thank you, Clara, for joining me. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you very soon in the next episode of the Popcorn Podcast. Cheers.